Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves SCEA. And of course, we would not be here without the South Carolina Education Association and a GPS grant from the National Education Association. And right now, today, starts something really important for the SCEA, and that is our early enrollment period. And you can go right now and join the SCEA.org if you are a new member. You can join at no cost until September. In other words, you can join today and not pay any dues until September. And that is just a great opportunity for you to join the movement, learn more about who we are, what we do, and the movement we're trying to build, learn about NEA's benefits, the benefits of being a member of the South Carolina Education Association, and of course, connecting with your local association. And no other advocacy association in South Carolina gives you membership at all three levels: the local, the state, and the national. So again, we want to just encourage you, if you've been thinking about joining the SCEA, now is the time to do it during our early enrollment period. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about contracts. And throughout my career as an educator, I didn't give my contract a whole lot of thought. And then as I started to do advocacy work, I realized how important it is for us to focus on contracts. And one of the leading voices in our state on improving contracts for educators and why we need to improve those contracts is Kat Lowe. And we have nicknamed her Contract Kat. And she's going to be joining us tonight to talk about the importance of our contracts and what we need to be fighting for to improve those contracts. So, Kat, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited. It's a great first day of starting up the membership drive. This is a great conversation to have when we want to talk about why it's a good idea to be a member and what we can do as a membership to make our classrooms the best that they can be.
Right. I mean, I was just talking to somebody last night about an issue they're having in their district, and they've been a member for a long time and realize how important it is to be a member, to have a union behind your back when those unexpected issues arise. So we hope that folks who are watching, if your career is not currently protected, you can do that tonight by joining the SCEA. But I do want to first of all give you an opportunity to share a little bit more about who you are with the folks who are listening, for those few people who may not know who you are.
Yeah, I'm Kat Lowe. I've been a teacher now for 20 plus years. I started in Richland 1 at Lower Richland High School, and I made my way to Charleston and taught at Londo High School. And right now I'm in Berkeley County, where I'm the Berkeley County Education Association president, so our local president, and I teach science at Hanahan High School. And I've been in advocacy now for a couple years, and I really got my start with our contract. I can remember years ago, we would have, the normal thing would happen is we'd have a meeting and there would be cupcakes, and they would hand us our piece of paper. And I didn't even really know that it was a contract. It was just something I thought I signed to say that, I'll be back next year. I didn't think anything of it. And I just happened to bring that contract home to my husband, who is a contract attorney. And he asked me what that was. And I was like, oh, I signed it with our cupcakes. And he was like, wait a minute, and, read through it and started asking really great questions. And I teach physics, and so I love understanding the mechanics of how everything works. And so I was positive that this contract, there had to be something more to it. But really, in the end, it is what we would call a contract of adhesion. And that's the type of contracts we get when we say okay to an app, or to, your iTunes account, where you just get to scroll, accept. And so ever since I've become more aware of our contract and our other ongoing issues, I just see that as the deep mechanics of how we can get our classrooms to be better. So I really think that You may not feel like you have that direct contract issue where, oh, if the contract said this, I wouldn't have this problem. If you really want to understand, why we have some of the overwhelming issues that we have, the contract is a really great place to start to understand what we need to do to get things better.
Yes, totally agree. And I think this is just something people take for granted, and then they think, well, the only way to fight for better working conditions is to support some kind of bill at the state house. But really, this starts at the local level with those contracts, because those contracts essentially either give you or don't give you the rights that you need as an educator to protect yourself from being exploited. And one of
Mhm.
those things, of course, is in so many contracts is other duties as assigned, which
Mhm.
which then gets used to take more of your time and to make you do more unpaid work. And that's really one of the big key issues here, isn't it? Just the idea that a school or a district can continue to ask you to do a bunch of unpaid work. And
Right.
because that's not specified as it is in other states where there's union protection and collective bargaining, that we wind up working many, many hours without being paid or compensated for it.
Right. And, in the end, a good contract is good for both parties. And in fact, I would argue that this contract also works against the district. So, like to your point about unspecified duties, well, it's really overwhelming work, the work that we do. And because the contract doesn't clarify, the boundaries of what work is, we have a tendency to just go over the top and do too much when maybe even the district wasn't anticipating us doing what we did. So there would be value for the district to create parameters and supports to let us know like what the expectations are. And so, I really kind of uh, focus on how we can get the contract to change. So we have tried working with legislators who have been very open to the contract issue. Many of them are lawyers and are well aware that our contract does not foster goodwill between parties. So when we go to the legislature, what we have to remember is that they can make rules, but if those rules don't have penalties and they don't have ways for us to access, recourse, so like when we see unencumbered time not being respected in the way that was defined by law, it makes it really hard for that teacher to go in to their principal's office and district office and cite the issue without feeling like they are putting themselves in a position where they're going to get targeted. So there are no protections either, and there are no penalties really for the district. So by making a contract that really reflects what the local district needs, that would be the best way for us to move forward. And so to do that, as opposed to just looking to the legislature to try and solve these problems for us, what we really need to do is create coalition. And the best way we can create coalition is to get members into the SCEA, sitting down in those local meetings for the locals. So for my local, it would be Berkeley County, and really saying what we need as the supports and expectations for the 190 days of really good work that we're going to give to our kids in the classroom. And that is a bottom up build. And so that takes people to do it. Again, I think we have a lot of support at the State House to try and create these types of contracts. What we need, though, is we need those teacher voices working together. And so that is why we need people signing up. And today is a great day to do it because it's free. But to become a part of a coalition that is going to build these contracts that year over year get better and better. They are more truthful. They are more than just fair. They build goodwill and they build respect that we desperately need right now in our classrooms. I really think it would be beneficial for the districts to get teachers involved and trying to build a better contract.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your top three if you had the power to wave a wand and either add or change the verbiage in the contracts, the typical contracts, what would be your top 3 things you'd like to see changed?
So the
Right.
top things I think that we absolutely have to have in there is language that allows teachers to break contract if when we find out what we get paid, because we have to sign these contracts before we get our, before we find out what our salary is, which is really crazy. I don't know of any other teacher contract, employment contract that looks like that. I do think that teachers should be able to break contract within a window after finding out what the district's pay scale is going to be, because of the fact that districts can be competitive with one another to lock a teacher in May, and then it turns out that the pay that was promised was not going to be there. I do think that teachers should be able to break contract without penalty. So I would like to see something like that. I would like to see some more rigid definitions about what they will be teaching next year. The other reason why teachers get overwhelmed is because when they come back into the classroom, they might be told that they're not teaching 2nd grade anymore, that they're teaching 3rd grade or they're teaching 4th grade. Or for someone like myself, like, am I going to be teaching physics or am I going to be teaching forensics? It's important to have expectations of what we're going to be teaching the next year. So I think it's very important that the district makes plans such that they can set expectations and tell teachers what they're going to be teaching. Many teachers spend the summer doing professional development, and they should be doing professional development towards the things that they will be doing the following fall. So I think that in the contract would also be incredibly beneficial. And then also a phrasing next to where that, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forget the phrase. The one you just said, where we do
Other
duties. Yeah, duties as assigned. I think that we need to have a clause in our contract that lets us refuse. And what I mean by that is we should have a right to say no defined in the contract when we do not think that that duty that is assigned is appropriate for whatever reasons. We need to have recourse and ability to say no. And these are actually very small things that cost $0, that takes some planning on the district front. And like I said, that's why it would take teachers to try and build this out, because we should have these types of expectations in our contract. And what we have to understand is because those things are not in our contract, we do not have those rights to do that. So they can move us grade level, they can move us wherever, whenever, not just grade level, but also schools. So I would also say in that statement of what expectations are for next year, like we should be able to stay at the school that we are assigned. And a lot of these things, you take them to another state, these are unheard of.
Right.
That they would that this would be so seamlessly put into a contract that the district would have capacity to do those types of things. And like I said, it's not beneficial for the district to have a contract that is so one-sided that it also creates, even if the district, and if you don't want to treat the district as if it's a bad actor, but because of the way the contract is set up and they have such overwhelming power to say and do things, it does make it so that it's difficult for the district to show that they are doing things of goodwill, right?
Yeah.
Because it happens at their whim, and there is no recourse or punishment if they decide that they're not going to fulfill whatever goodwill statement that they said they were going to do for you.
How much of this seeming like lack of rights for educators is sort of a vestigial structure from the idea that this is a profession for women, and it's and they don't really need to be compensated or treated fairly because this is sort of just like they're almost like glorified babysitters, and
Hmm.
their husbands will be the breadwinners. I mean, it feels like there's a little bit of that at play here, and some sort of patriarchal nonsense
Yeah.
going
It,
on.
I would argue, specifically for South Carolina, it's even a little worse for that. If you go back historically on this contract, and you'll see that in places like Orangeburg, the few changes that have happened to contracts, and Orangeburg contract looks like most of the contracts look exactly the same, some slight rephrasing, but mostly the same. But in Orangeburg, there was a time where part of that contract had a pledge that you would not join the NAACP or the Communist Party, and that was a part of the contract. So when we look at these contracts and ask ourselves how we got into this position, I think you're right. I think that these are probably documents that have just, been Xerox copied and copied over year with very little change and very little expectation. And so now, as that our position has changed and our expectations have changed, the contract has not. And so
Right.
it's not been the living document. Like, contracts are supposed to be living documents. This is something we have to sign every year. It
Mhm.
should be able to change every year to reflect the changes and expectations that are happening in that district.
And it feels like it's not going to change as long as educators stay complacent and just don't say anything, don't use their voice, as you mentioned that they should. I think there's this. I think there's sometimes culturally in South Carolina this idea of I need to comply and just go along with whatever the authority figures are saying, and I don't need to speak up because that would be rude of me, or that would be, you know, it would make me not a nice person if I speak up and argue against uh, the structures that exist, or even bring up the idea that maybe this is a bit patriarchal and we ought to be moving into the 21st century and protecting the rights of educators to earn a good living and to be protected with a fair contract. And I think
Right.
so. So, what would be your message? How do we sort of get to this tipping point where there's enough educators, not just a few here and there, like you, kind of crying out in the wilderness, like, "Hey, pay attention to this." Like, how do we build the kind of momentum that we saw, like on May 1st, 2019? How do we
Yeah.
rebuild that momentum and get to that place where we're just all in unison demanding better contracts?
Yeah, and I think with this issue in particular, I really take it from the approach of so many teachers uh, feel their position in education is a vocation, right? That they pride themselves that they can overcome adversity, that they're going to set aside what is happening to them and they're going to put their best into their classrooms and they're going to give it their all. And because of that, I from talking to teachers, I think I recognize a certain level of discomfort about saying that these contracts are necessary to make their classroom better. Like, they see kind of a disconnect there because they don't need a good contract because so much of their focus is in the classroom and they don't want to be haggling out,
Mhm.
what's happening. And so, what I think we need people to see, and I think that they see it in themselves, is that they first of all, we are more than these contracts. We are more than these teachers. And when we let these contracts work against us in this way, it's just one more uh, adversarial thing that we need to overcome to bring our best into the
Mhm.
classroom. Like, a really great contract is a really great deal, and when you have a great deal, you feel great about yourself. You feel great about your surroundings. You feel great about what you're doing. And so I really think that if teachers got a great deal, they would be better in their classroom. And that is the point where we need members to come forward and recognize that, negotiating on a contract or talking about a contract or asking the district to refine the contract so that we can understand the expectations is an opportunity to make our classrooms better. Not better as in like it'll hit us immediately, but year over year. Like these are the things that build out. It matters when you get to respectfully draw a boundary with your administrator and recognize like where you're really needed to make that impact in the classroom and the school, and maybe where you're just kind of running your wheels and some of the activities they ask us to do is just a bridge too far. Because I'm not just a teacher, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I need to be great at those things too. And so I have to be a good delegator of my own time so that I can be the great professional that I want to be in the classroom. And these things really cannot happen without coalitions of teachers. So again, I'm just going to keep on saying, like, I think we've done a great job with legislators. We are moving the ball forward. We are finding allies everywhere. Everyone knows a teacher and wants good things for a teacher. In the end, it will be us. It will be the teachers that push forward these contracts that will make our classrooms better. And there really isn't any other better way to do it, because, we can make good relationships with the people in the district office. We can make good relationships with the legislators, but the contract, the four corners of the contract, how it reads, it's a deal. And I think teachers deserve a good deal.
Absolutely. And it would also help with recruitment of educators and retention.
Oh yeah.
When a person feels like, if I have an offer to go somewhere else and I've got a better contract, whether it's not only just pay, but just better working conditions and a very
Right.
clear outline of what my job duties are going to be, how much time's involved, how I'll be compensated, all of that. It's that is very tempting to turn to an employer who's going to respect me with a proper contract. What I know we talked a little bit about the signing day. Can you talk a little bit about signing day so folks remember like when that is and why
Yes.
they should maybe consider waiting to that day?
Yeah, so one of the things that we can do, I think the immediate, uh, heartfelt moment of like, oh, we're gonna go on strike. We're not gonna go on strike. We can't put the cart before the horse. I mean, in the end, what we need to do is make sure that we know what the contract says. And like I was telling you at the beginning, there used to be a time you'd walk in and there was a meeting, there were cupcakes and there was a paper and you just signed it and there was no thinking to it. But really, it's a very important document that locks you into your district for a year. Uh, and so, what we want is we want a chance to give people, time to look over the contract and talk to the people around them about what these contracts are about. We have very few rules that we can depend on when it comes to these contracts, and one of them is that we have until May 10th to sign. So if you receive your contract, if you already got it, or if you get it in April here, your principal can ask you to sign it right away, but you do not have to. They cannot take the contract from you. You have until May 10th to sign it. And so we're asking everyone to wait until May 10th, because by waiting till May 10th, it gives us an opportunity to do that thing that I'm talking about, is building coalitions, talking about our contracts, and deciding what we want things to look like. One of the things I always tell my Berkeley County group and people that I've advocated for and with for many, many years is this phrase of what we allow is what will continue.
Mm.
And so if we allow ourselves to just sign the contract because we don't think anything's ever going to change, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not going to change because that's what we allowed.
Right.
And so we have to change the way that we are doing things. And this means that you may hear from an administrator. I get an email from my administrator reminding me, like, remember to sign it, But it's an important exercise for everyone to remember that we actually have agency already. And we should try and build off of what we do have. And we have each other. And the few years that we have done signing days, it never really felt emotional when you would do it. Again, you get a cupcake, so they're like, that's an emotion, I guess. But the few signing day events that we have had, and you sit next to your friends, your neighbor teachers, your teachers that are in the SCEA. That's the other thing I love about SCEA, instant neighborhood, instant community of people. You get to look around, and it's like you're making a deal with those guys. Like, we're going to do this one more time.
Right.
Because it's a commitment. I think people forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is an all-in moment.
Yeah.
Because if you break contract, they still have capacity to take, your license. They have capacity to change your world.
Right.
And that overwhelm is very real. And it feels like you have agency when you get to sit down with your colleagues and tell each other that, like, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this together. Right. We're going to make it better. And we've like I said, we've made progress. But we can make much more progress if we have more members. And so that is my big ask tonight, is like, I want a contract for us. I want something that we can be proud of, something we deserve. And it is something that we need to do together.
That's right. So why specifically the SCEA? So for someone who might be watching, they're not a member of an advocacy organization. Why is it that the SCEA specifically is the advocacy organization for educators to join to actually create the kind of change that we're talking about?
Yeah, this happens. The SCEA is, it really is a local level build. So, essentially every local district has, I'll talk about BCA in particular. The second you sign up with the SCEA, you are put into your district local. And there are already members in there that have been working at the schools and the district that you are at. So you are already locked into those good teacher neighbors that you need to make it through the year. For many, once you sign up, you're locking into, neighborhood teachers that are at your school. So, at my school, we have members, and, we can immediately, talk to each other about what's going on and move it up the chain into the district, and then move it up the chain again into the state. And so, the SCEA is different because of that local control. And what happens in Berkeley County is decided by Berkeley County teachers. So we have meetings, we have our own agendas based on, the members that are involved. Like, all you have to do is start coming to a meeting, and you can put ideas onto the agenda of the things that we want to do. And we vote. It is a democracy. We make decisions as a group, and we move forward as a group. And you get representation right away. So right away, you'll have people that are on staff from the SCEA that can help you if you need help with, issues going on at your school or in your district, or you just need to understand what's going on. It's always better to have that person that you can call that isn't gonna judge you. The one thing I'm always shocked by is, man, I don't know any worker as hard as a teacher. And I'm sure that people can bring examples, but like, when I walk around my school, I mean, everybody's hustling, everybody's working, and it is a grind of 190
Mhm.
days. And just the nature and stress of the stuff that we do, like if you have one bad day, you just want somebody to talk to that's just going to listen, that they're not going to judge you, that
Right.
you're not going to be stuck in that situation where now you're seen as like the bad teacher when like you had one bad day. We're there for each other. So I would say for me, the SCEA is the closest thing that you're going to get to having that team, that network that you
Right.
just really need to make it to the next day, the next week, the next semester, the next year.
Right. And it feels like I remember being in the classroom and thinking, I'm just going to shut my door and
Mhm.
focus, like you had mentioned, kind of the mentality of I'm just going to focus on what's going on inside of here, and just be the best teacher I can for these kids and kind of put my nose down and just do the work and go home and try to relax. And what I didn't realize until I got about halfway through my career was there's this important concept of solidarity that maybe
Mhm.
things are okay for me right now, but it doesn't mean they're always going to be okay for me. Things can change very quickly, as we've seen. And also, it doesn't mean that there's also things that can be happening. I'm sorry, there's these texts coming through, and I want to stop them. Um, I don't know. Uh, there may be things happening in other buildings in my district or in other districts in the state where I need to step up for other people in my profession. And that
Mhm.
solidarity is so important for us to consider. And the best way we can do that is by joining an organization and coming together and organizing, like you said, starting at that local grassroots level and then coming together at the state level to figure out what's working locally, what's not working. And then also have the NEA, the National Education Association, and their support services and all the things that they do and all of their benefits to support us as well. And I always tell people, if you're not advocating at all three levels, you're missing a huge
Mhm.
component. You're missing one of those components. And so I love what you said about the importance of building those strong local structures, because without those, we're just relying on somebody to go advocate at the state house for us.
Right.
And even though we get to do that sometimes as educators, they're meeting a lot of times when we're having to teach.
Right.
So we've got to have those local structures that you've talked about. What have we not discussed that you want to mention about contracts or about the SCEA tonight before we sign off?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to actually piggyback on one of your points, and I do hear it a lot. Like that mentality of like I'm going to close my door and I'm just going to control what's happening inside my classroom. And I think that we have been so overwhelmed, and for dozens of reasons, that has been our thought process. And I'm starting to think more and more as our Berkeley membership grows, that really the idea should be that if we had this connectivity, if we have this level of membership where you do have members in your school, and you have leaders in your school, and you have leaders helping you at the district, like as opposed to trying to take that defensive stance of like closing your door and just being like I'll control what I can inside my room. Like, what if we had a setup where the best thing you could do is open your door, because support is coming in and help is coming in, and we're going to start getting clarity and discussions. And I think that these things happen for us if we build something for ourselves.
Mhm.
I don't want to do the like no one's coming to save us, but no one's going to build this for us better than we are.
That's right.
And so we need each other now to do this now. We have this opportunity. I can't say this enough. There are many legislators on both sides of the aisle in all parts of the state that see this contract, recognize the problem, and want to know what they can do to help. But really, they can't do much until we do things ourselves. And that really takes membership. That takes teachers in numbers, making choices and operating the way that the SCEA does at the local level, where we build agendas, we vote on things, we have discussions. And that is where those great ideas are going to come in, and we need to be able to embed them in a contract that binds the district to the deal. Because again, I think that the district should be looking to give us a great deal. Great deals don't just mean good pay. I think they have responded to pay. I think that they are recognizing that. And so as we are starting to see that movement in the right direction, now we do have to focus on how we can make a workplace that is not just a great workplace because, you know, it's a great principal or it's a great school or it's a great district. It's a great school because you got a great deal to get to go and work there.
Yeah.
And that's what a contract does. It gets you a great deal.
It does. And when you talk to teachers from the states where they have strong contracts, you realize how much we're missing here as educators in South Carolina. You know, you may be asked to stay after for a faculty meeting, and it goes on and on and on and on. And in other states, it's like, nope, you've got till whatever, 4:00, 4:30, and then we're done. And so these little things that don't seem like much add up over a 30-year career.
Right.
All these extra hours, all this extra work that you're putting in, all of these other things that they're demanding that you do without pay, that adds up. And it may seem when you're first starting out trivial, especially if you start out and you don't have kids and you don't have a family to go home to, and you're trying to prove your worth. And I remember doing that. I remember just saying yes to everything, even though I wasn't being compensated for it. And then you get into your career after a decade or a decade and a half, and you realize, hey, wait a second, I'm doing all this work and I'm not getting paid any extra for it. So then you're trying to pull back a little bit from it. We've got to find a way to, and the only way is what you're mentioning is through contracts to really clearly outline what we're being compensated and what we're being compensated for, what the expectation is from us for that compensation. And
right.
when
And
we're
then
doing work beyond that, we need either time off or extra pay.
yeah. And like the other thing that always kind of comes into this, so I think state legislators have seen these contracts and they're like, what is this? You know? But we have to remember that this is a contract with the district. So most of the districts they look about the same because they've been in the same level of decay. What we have to do is focus as districts to get better contracts. And it doesn't necessarily have to happen with every single district, because these districts know they have to be competitive. And there's a reason why the contracts look more the same than they do different, right? So if we start seeing movement on certain aspects of the contract in Greenville, because we have people there that are good with working with their administration and have them recognize that, to your point, that like these meetings are going on too long, and they put language in there and they win that language. Well, now all the other districts, because of the way the SCEA works, will see that part of the contract and be able to fight for that to be on their district contract. So we are like, again, it is the connectivity of all of the districts working together, and then those district locals really, you know, hashing out things that they want to see on their contracts and pushing forward those ideas to get them on the contract. And we're in luck this year because the Education Assistance Act did make some rules about what is supposed to be on your contract. We're still waiting on some guidance, I think, as to know exactly what it is. But what I would say is the most important thing to understand is that we have broken through to making this a contract that can breathe again. So essentially, it is a living contract that they will have to change every year. And if they have to change it every year, that gives us an opportunity to push for things that we think should be in that contract and build every single year. Yeah. So I see this as a real opportunity. Like I said, I really think this is our moment to try and get ourselves a better deal.
Yeah. And your point is well made around this is why local structures are so important, because if we can break through in a single district, especially a district like Berkeley or Greenville or Horry County, if we can break through in one of these big districts and really get some good changes to the contract, that all of a sudden puts pressure on these other districts to start emulating what those changes, and then those become norms across the state, because
Yeah.
nobody, in order to be able to compete for the limited pool of educators, you're going to have a competitive contract. And it's not just about the wages, it's also about, how you're treating people. And to my message to these districts who are struggling to, maybe they don't have the funding of a Charleston. One of the ways you could get people there is by actually leading the way and creating a more fair contract, being the model for what a contract can look like. So I want to just encourage, if there's any district officials watching from these rural districts or districts that are hard to find folks to fill those vacancies, change your contract. Make a really attractive contract. You might start seeing people move in your direction.
It's the best type of competition, because I think that district leadership loves to get into meetings and talk about, like, well, our teachers love fill in the blank, and so many times, like, because our contracts are so ambiguous, it works against the district that we just assume they can ask us for anything. Well, if they just refined what they were asking for, it may not be that much less of what they normally get, but now they have teachers that are excited and happy again. Like, I don't know about you, but, like, I love a good deal. So, like, I think people want to, smile and shake hands and get one. And so, again, I just think that this is a great opportunity for us to try and build and make it so that teachers really understand that their agency, they have a voice, and their voice just gets amplified when we build coalition. And I think the best coalition out there is the SCEA.
Yeah. Well, Kat, thank you so much for your relentless and consistent advocacy, especially on this issue, which has earned you the nickname of Contract Cat.
Thanks.
I don't know who came up with that first, but thank you so much for leading the way on this issue, because I do think you're right. I do think the contract is the mechanism we need to be looking at to create the kind of working conditions that educators deserve, and those working conditions become our students' learning conditions. And so if we really want to benefit students, if our goal is to be student first, really we've got to take care of those who are taking care of our students. And the best way we can do that is through a fair contract. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, Kat, thanks so much. All right, everybody, that was Kat Lowe, Contract Cat. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. And now if you're not a member of the SCEA, now is the best time for you to join. If you are a new member, you can join today at no cost. You can join during our early enrollment period, which just started today. And you can join and you won't have any dues until September. So you can join now in April, get April, May, June, July, and August at no cost, and then start paying your dues in September. I want to encourage everybody to go to that link at the bottom of the screen, join the SCEA.org. Kat really eloquently shared how our collective voice has power. When we're just individuals in our classrooms, we can have impact over our students, but when we come together in our profession with solidarity, with a collective voice, we can make the changes that we all deserve. We can get better wages. We can get better working conditions. It is not hopeless if we come together, and we come together through the South Carolina Education Association, which is the only union for educators in South Carolina and the only education association that gives you membership at all three levels: the local, the state, and the national. And of course, we give you all kinds of opportunities for professional growth, all kinds of member benefits. You can check out the member benefits at NEAMB, or just look up NEA member benefits. Check out all of the benefits that come with being a member of the largest labor union in the United States with 3.2 million members across the country. And by the way, this is not just for classroom educators. If you are working in a public school in South Carolina as a bus driver, a cafeteria worker, front office staff, an administrator, or a classroom teacher, anybody working in a public school in South Carolina can be a member of the South Carolina Education Association. And of course, one of the most important things we do is to advocate for our members. So our members get that liability coverage, that legal protection. You can call our help desk, and we have UniServe directors in each region of the state who can come and support you if there are issues with your administration. And here's the thing: you never know what's going to happen in your career. You just don't. You can go through your entire career and think I've made it safe and everything's fine, and in that last year, something comes up. A parent complains, a student complains, and all of a sudden you've made some small mistake and it's being blown up into this huge thing, and you need legal protection, or you need someone to come sit with you in a meeting with your administration. That's what the SCEA is here for. We insure our cars, we insure our homes. Hopefully, we're never going to get in an accident. Hopefully, there'll never be a fire or a flood in our home. But we insure those things because we want to protect those things because they're important to us. Well, our career is equally important to us. Our career as educators is important, and we need to ensure that. And one of the ways we do that is through membership in the SCEA, getting that legal coverage, that liability coverage that we provide to all of our members. It is important to note that when you're paying at no cost, that legal protection doesn't kick in right away. So please make sure you're aware of that. But you can join today and learn about all the other benefits and what our movement's all about today at no cost. And we just want to encourage everybody to do that. It's a no-brainer. If you're not a member and you haven't been a member and you're even thinking about it, now's the time to do it. It's an obvious thing to do. One other thing I wanted to mention is our cool coaching program. They will be doing this tomorrow night. That's Thursday from 6 to 8 o'clock. If you are an induction teacher, that means a classroom teacher in the first 5 years of your career, you can log on at cool.us/coaching, and you will get free online one-to-one support from one of these three outstanding veteran educators, Angie Brush, Stephanie Johnson, and Dr. Marcella Weinsnyder. They are on every Tuesday and Thursday. They will be taking a break next week as we have spring break, but then they'll resume the week after. And just let all of the induction teachers in your area know about this free program. You don't have to be a member of the SCEA, but it's every Tuesday and Thursday night, and you don't have to log on for the whole 2 hours. You can just log on at whatever time is convenient within those 2 hours and get the support that you need. So thanks again to Kat Lowe, and thanks to everybody. So many people tuned in: Cassie, Kiana, Mev, Stephanie. I haven't seen you in a while, Stephanie. How are you doing? She says, amen, Todd. So many. Cindy Fisk joined. Thanks so much, Brandy. Thanks, Rita, Mary Rita. Tuned in. Mitchell, thank you so much for tuning into tonight's live stream. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please like it. One of the most important things you can do to help us, and it's free and easy, is just like the things that we post, comment on them, and then share them on your timeline if you feel that they're relevant to the people in your area. So like, comment, share. I know you hear that in all these social media spaces, but it's so important, and you never know who's going to hear the message and it will resonate with them. If we're going to actually build a movement, it's going to take those little steps too. It's going to take everybody kind of coming together and saying, it doesn't cost me anything. It takes 3 seconds for me to like something, to say, hey, great job, or enjoyed this, and click share, post it on your timeline. That doesn't take any time, and it's free, and it is incredibly helpful to get the word out to more and more people when we post things. And it could be a simple announcement of an event we have coming up, or it could be a live stream like this, or one of Pete Stone's videos, or Steve Newsom's articles. whatever it is you're seeing coming out of the SCEA or out of CEWL on our social channels, please like it, comment on it, share it, subscribe if you can. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. You can go over to Instagram. This is the link to Instagram. It's instagram.com/the_SCEA_. And at TikTok, it's just tiktok.com/the SCEA. And on YouTube, you can search for the South Carolina Education Association. All of our live streams are posted to the YouTube channel, and they're also posted to the CEWL website and the SCEA website. So lots of different places for you to explore our resources and share our resources and be a part of what we're doing. So thanks again to Kat. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in a few weeks on our next live stream. Until then, have a wonderful Easter and a wonderful spring break, everybody. You deserve it. You're almost there. Hang on just a couple more days, and you've got a nice, hopefully a nice week off where you can relax and enjoy yourself and recharge for that last quarter of our school year. Until then, take care. Bye, everybody.
Together we learn, together we grow, together we heal, together we flow. Be cool, every teacher, every school. Be cool, every teacher, every school. Be cool, every teacher, every school.